do want to note that while the bill calls for 33% by 2020,
we now have a quorum first, but let's go ahead and call the roll.
Chesbro.
Here.
Knight.
Here.
Brownlee. Here. Dickinson. Grove. Here. Alderman. Here. Huffman. Monning. Skinner.
A quorum having been established, I apologize for interrupting, but
not at all, Mr. Chairman. The quorum is the most important thing. I just want to note that while the bill calls for 33% by 2020, the bill that is before you today provides flexibility, has ratepayer protections for cost concerns, and creates California-based jobs that helps the state's economy. Some of the members will recall that we were here in 2009. I had a measure at that time that passed both houses, including passing out of this committee. It went to the governor. The governor vetoed it. He expressed concerns primarily about limitations on the location of energy that would be qualified under the bill's provisions. Last year, 2010, we tackled that issue and I think have gotten a pretty broad-based consensus about that portion of the bill, which was the most difficult, frankly, in 2009. As some of you will recall, the bill moved off the Assembly floor last year with some last-day amendments that helped bring a lot of folks along. Unfortunately, the clock struck midnight before the bill could be taken up for a vote in the Senate, and that's why we're back yet again with this particular measure. There were amendments late at the end of the year that are still in this bill, and I think it's important to reference them. They are ratepayer protection provisions, which can be found at page 41 and on page 42. And they are designed to protect ratepayers from substantial increase in cost and to make sure that there is not a disproportionate rate impact on the various ratepayer classes. Similarly, there are compliance flexibility provisions that were taken. These are on page 40 of the bill, members. And this is a tension, Mr. Chairman, that we've talked about in this committee previously. On the one hand, folks who want 33% by 2020 want that to be real, want it to be certain. On the other hand, the folks who are providing that energy, particularly the investor-owned utilities, say, well, really not reasonable to ask us to provide energy that isn't available or to provide energy where we don't have adequate transmission or where there are unexpected delays in siting. So we've tried to provide the flexibility that those circumstances might involve. That's on page 40. And then, Mr. Chairman, this issue of where does this energy come from was addressed on pages 45 through 47 of the bill. This is now a product loading order rather than a sort of a fixed definition that was causing concern before. I want to be very clear about one point. There is no requirement that any of the energy in any amount specifically come from in-state. What we have done, however, is created sort of a hierarchy of values so that the emphasis is on real renewable energy from the state if possible, if not from energy directly connected to the state, if not from energy that is moved by what we call a dynamic transfer agreement. And then if none of that is getting us all the way there, we still have provisions for what's known as firmed and shaped, and we still have provisions for renewable energy credits. So this, as I say, has, I think, worked to the satisfaction of more of the stakeholders. Additionally, the measure grandfathers in renewable resources that were already contracted as of June 1st, 2010. There's quite a bit more, but I think what I'd rather do, Mr. Chairman, is just say thank you again for hearing the measure, and I'd be happy to respond to questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we go to witnesses, are there any comments or questions from members of the committee? If not, we'll go ahead and call on those in favor of the bill. Please come forward. Given how long we've been talking about this, I'd encourage you all to, I'm not going to set time limits at this point, but I just encourage you to get to the point.
It's only been 4 years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jan Smutney Jones. I'm the Executive Director of the Independent Energy Producers Association. We're a trade association that represents a large number of different types of resources. About 80% of the currently delivered renewable energy comes from my member companies. California has long had a bipartisan commitment to building renewable resources in our state, and we think that this current bill is a good step in the right direction. We had previous concerns with an earlier version of this bill, and I think the Senator has addressed them in his opening remarks. I think it's very important that in the 4 years that we've been talking about this, we've seen a lot of positive things happen with respect to competitively procuring renewables, with the prices coming significantly down and innovation going up. So we believe there's a lot of opportunity to create new jobs in California now, and we would encourage an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Erin Niemela, representing large-scale solar. We are the 13 largest solar developers and wholesalers in the world, 13 of the largest solar developers and wholesalers in the world. We support the bill. Large Scale has more than 150 projects pending in the state. They are in the counties of Kern, Fresno, San Diego, Riverside, Inyo, Imperial, San Joaquin, Tulare, and Kings for the most part. Each creates about 500 jobs on average and could create about $1.5 million in sales and property tax revenue. Bill's not our ideal. It actually is not as much a mandate as we would like it to be. It lets utilities off the hook with regard to their 20% obligation and has a number of compliance off-ramps. But it is a bill that we can point to for Wall Street that will help our projects go forward. And for that reason, we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman, members, Donna Brownsey representing the Solar Alliance. The Alliance has 32 companies, many of them headquartered here in the state of California. We also support this bill. Just a couple notes with respect to the RPS policy will in fact give certainty to the financing for many of these projects. That's extremely crucial for not only the large scale but the smaller distributed generation projects. Since 2005, our industry for solar alone has brought $2 billion in private investment capital into the state. The price of solar panels has decreased since 2009, and whereas 5 years ago there were only 2 manufacturing plants, there are now between 10 and 15 in various stages of being in production, under construction, or putting together their financing to locate here. And all of this is due to the renewable policies of the state of California. We urge your strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Peter Miller, representing the Natural Resources Defense Council. Since the RPS program was first initiated in 2002, it's been implemented extremely successful. We're well ahead of our initial targets that were initially set in 2002. This is the logical next step to moving forward to our 33% goal for 2020. We're strongly in support. Not only will it provide important environmental protections and create jobs in the state, but I think if you look around the world today, the value that this bill will provide to the state of California in terms of energy independence cannot be understated.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next witness.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Dan Kolb with the Union of Concerned Scientists. As you heard, this bill is over 3 years in the making and represents substantial negotiations, compromise, and analysis about the best way to structure this policy. And while we may desire that a few of the provisions be modified or strengthened, we accept the bill as drafted in the spirit of compromise and urge you to pass the bill as written. Moving swiftly is also a very important point. RPS passage cannot wait till the end of the regular legislative session. Without renewables requirement in statute, investors are much less likely to move forward with plans for prospective projects, thereby putting at risk the jobs that come along with those projects, not to mention the clean air benefits to our state. We appreciate the time and effort that the author and staff and others have put into this, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Mr. Chair and members, Don Gilbert representing Terragen Power. Terragen is the largest independent renewable developer in the country. We also feel that the bill is needed. We need 33% in statute in order to get the jittery folks on Wall Street to be comfortable with our financing. It makes it much easier and quicker to develop projects. And that's why we don't want to wait longer than the 4 years we've been waiting already. And that's why we support the bill. The byproduct of that is the jobs and tax revenue we've talked about. We have already just a fraction of the largest wind facility in the world developed in Kern County. We've already caused about $1 billion of positive economic impact and about 1,000 jobs. And lastly, there's a lot of talk about price increases here. Before the RPS, that's when we were held up by others, in large part due to our over-reliance on natural gas. billions and billions and billions of dollars of costs to ratepayers. So to me, the logical conclusion of saying it's too expensive to do renewables, well, then it's also too expensive, I guess, to do natural gas, because that's where we really took it in the wallet. And so it just doesn't make sense to me to say, don't diversify your energy portfolio. We urge an aye vote.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman, members, my name is Monica Jansen, representing Sierra Club, California, and we are in support of this bill.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman and members, Randy Chin with Southern California Edison. As the author noted, this bill provides us with some flexibility to negotiate better prices for our customers and provide some certainty to the rules as we go forward. It's an awful lot like SB 722 from last year, the final version which we supported, and we're happy to support this version of the bill here today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, members, Justin Malone with the California League of Conservation Voters. For the reasons stated, we very much support. We urge the prompt and unamended passage of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman, member Cindy Howe with San Diego Gas and Electric, and we support SB 2X. Urge your support and hope the governor signs it this week or next. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Fred Notware. I represent a company in Santa Clara called Applied Materials, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Mr. Chair and members, Eduardo Martinez on behalf of the Coalition of California Utility Employees, the California State Association of Electrical Workers, the California State Pipes Trades Council, and the Western States Council of Sheet Metal Workers in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Audra Hartman with NextEra Energy. We own and operate existing wind and solar facilities in the state and are developing new ones, including a solar thermal facility in the desert area just west of Blythe. We support the bill and ask for your support as well.
Thank you for your testimony. Yes. Next.
Sylvia Solis Shaw on behalf of the California Biomass Energy Alliance, which is a trade association of 33 plants, solid fuel biomass plants in California. We believe this measure is important for the continued long-term viability of California's existing biomass industry, which employs more than 2,000 people, both at plants and jobs associated with the fuel infrastructure. And we ask for your strong support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Good afternoon. Glenn Backus for the Yellow Baker Center for Human Rights Green Collar Jobs campaign in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Mr. Chair, member Scott Governor on behalf of the California Wind Energy Association in support.
Thank you. Next witness.
Mr. Chair, Cassandra Goff of Calpine. TerraGen might be the largest renewable developer, but we're the largest renewable operator in your district and hoping to develop more. We're in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Mr. Chair, member Cesar Diaz on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council, also in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman, members, Will Gonzalez on behalf of the Sacramento Municipal Utilities Association. We actually have a support if amended on this bill. There's a provision of the bill unintended which doesn't allow SMUD to count excess procurement above 20%, which is already reached, into the future compliance period. It's a $25 to $50 million hit, but I think there's a commitment to fix that and clean up bill. So with that, we are support if. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Alicia Priego with the California Municipal Utilities Association. CMUA represents over 40 electric publicly owned utilities in the state. We have a support if amended position on the bill. Many of our local governing boards have adopted a 33% RPS. However, existing law has allowed our municipal utility to set their own individual targets and dates, and so we have asked for flexibility in the first compliance period as we bring our local programs into alignment with the statewide policy and encourage your consideration of our amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Phyllis Brown with the Southern California Public Power Authority, 11 cities and an irrigation district with community-owned electric utilities, in support, if amended, of the bill, and just want to reiterate what CMUA's concerns are.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, members, John White with the Clean Power Campaign. We support the bill as written, urge its passage, appreciate the author's patience and the evolution of the bill, and ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, members, Greg Cook representing Northern California Power Agency. We're in support of the bill.
Thank you very much. Okay, there's no other witnesses in favor. I will ask for witnesses in opposition.
Mr. Chairman, members, Theo Pejos represents the Alliance for Retail Energy Markets. We are the association of the ESPs that serve the state and its customers. We do remain opposed to the bill for a number of reasons. We'll just highlight a couple. The first one has to do with grandfathering language. I'm sure by now the Senator and his staff and many of the stakeholders are tired of us giving the same testimony in every committee, but essentially our problem is the bill does not grandfather those contracts that were recently blessed by the PUC through their TREC decision earlier this year. So essentially what I'm saying here is we have contracts that we entered into for renewable energy to meet the RPS as recently as this year that aren't grandfathered into this bill. The IOU's contracts are grandfathered in back to their TREC decision, which was June 2010. We believe that ours needs to be as well. We think this is a glaring problem because these are literally tens of millions of dollars that the companies have spent, and the value will, of course, be lessened because they won't be able to use those contracts for RPS compliance if these grandfathering amendments aren't taken. I will say that we have had communications with a couple of the stakeholders in the author's office, and there seems to be a willingness to move on this issue and clean up, so that does give us a little bit of comfort. But again, that's one that we're particularly concerned about. Other concerns we have are the concerns that other stakeholders have relating to banking forward, for instance. Right now, the bill allows contracts to be banked forward of 10 years or more in duration. Those 10-year contracts are very difficult for ESPs to enter into because we don't have the same customer base. We don't get a guaranteed rate recovery, so 10 years is kind of long. We are able to do it in some very limited instances. So essentially, without a change in the banking forward provisions, we'd be forced to be buying only in that compliance year, and that does present some challenges. I'll leave it at that. There are other issues, but I assume that we'll be working on those either in cleanup or down the road in other legislative years. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Hello, Valerie Torella, Pacific Gas and Electric Company. Regrettably, we do have a position of oppose unless amended on this legislation. And I want to apologize to the committee for getting our letter in late to not be included in the analysis. We do not oppose 33%. We supported a framework in 2009 that was vetoed, but we do want to hopefully reach a framework that we can support that we feel can mitigate and manage the costs of the program for our customers. So we're ready and willing to continue the conversation and work with the author and the legislature on cleanup legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Hi, Dominic Damari here on behalf of the Safeway Corporation here in California. We do support the 33% RPS, always have, always will. Unfortunately, this bill, as presently drafted, does present a number of challenges that have been previously articulated. However, we have spent a lot of quality time with the author's staff and others and proponents and feel that many of these challenges are not insurmountable. So at this time, we are opposed, but we would anticipate, we can envision a time in the future when we could be in support of this bill. So we will continue the dialogue as long as Senator Simitian is willing to meet and talk and bang our heads against the wall. We're willing to be there. So, but remain opposed at this time with hope for the future. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Yes, sir.
Hello, John Larea with the California League of Food Processors. As Jan pointed out, it has been 4 years since this bill's been before this legislature, and a lot has changed in that time. One of the things that's occurred is that we now have abundant natural gas in this nation, almost 10% above where it was back when we first started this process. And that gas is falling to, what was it, about $3 at the Henry Hub the last couple of days, and is expected to fall further. That means that there's going to be a lot of interest in energy generated outside the state, but we're going to be behind a wall of RPS contracts and negotiations that's going to keep us from getting to that low-cost energy. The other is that we haven't reached 20% yet. Why don't we first get to 20%, make sure it works, and then move to 33%? Why do we have to jump ahead right now? Somebody said it was Wall Street so that they can get their so they'll have more confidence. Well, the problem with Wall Street is that they want the regulatory scheme in place so that they can transfer the risk from their investments to the ratepayers and the taxpayers of California. And you know what? We're in the middle of a recession, and we really need not to do that kind of thing. We need investments, and we need the kind of interest in getting business back in place, and that includes the food processors who happen to operate in some of the highest unemployment areas in the state. We could sure use some help, and renewables is not going to get us there because it's just going to raise our rates in another area. And then we have to face AB 32, which is the freight train that's going to wipe out a lot of them. You know, as far as we can tell, you know, I mean, the difference between compliance and a business failure is the same thing to an environmentalist. It eliminates emissions. Well, you know what? We can eliminate emissions too, but we need some help from the legislature and from the agencies here to get there. Thank you.
Mike Brogy with California Manufacturers and Technology Association. Our energy costs are 53% above the national average, and we're very concerned that this bill will just cement the fact that we have the highest energy costs in the country, and that'll be a real negative as far as getting people to move to the state or to expand in this state. We're opposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we go further to comments, I wanted to note Senator Byron Scherer has joined us, is in the audience, and not only the former chair of this committee, but also the author of the original RPS legislation and many, many other landmark pieces of environmental legislation. Come to witness some more history, I hope. So, are there any, I guess I should, I've noted this chair before us and others who call for tweeners. We did hear some in favor on less, opposed on less. Is there anybody who had any other testimony that didn't quite fit into the for or against category? Well, seeing none, let me say that I do think that we've reached a historic critical moment for the legislature and for the people of the state of California, and an opportunity exists before us to create jobs during one of the most difficult recessions that we've seen, and do it in a way that makes us more self-sufficient. I think while there's no clear direct correlation between our dependency on offshore oil and our electrical production in this state, I do think we are witnessing in the Middle East the lack of wisdom in not being energy self-sufficient, and the more we can do in every form of energy to do so, it's quite critical. We've heard a number of people, as I indicated, who have expressed concerns that the bill is not perfect, and I know that the author, and I'm sure there'll be some more conversation because members may echo some of those concerns, and you'll have the chance to confirm this yourself, Senator Simitian, but I know the author has told many of you that and that he's willing to work in the future to try to address those various unresolved issues that are still floating out there. I do want to say that there's a parallel, speaking of Senator Byron Scherer, that I worked on for many, many years in the area of AB 939 and waste reduction, where there was a balancing act that had to go on between a sure enough direction that we were going to stick to it, that investors would be willing to put up the money to transform the system of waste management and recycling in California. On the other hand, unintended consequences, unresolved issues left the need for balance and flexibility so that you didn't have an absolute mandate that would lock us in and potentially create more problems than it solved. And in that case, we didn't try to do it all in one bill. In fact, it took several more bills by Assemblyman and Senator Scherer and work by the Waste Board to find that right balance. And I suspect that no matter how much work has gone over the last 4 years into finding that delicate balance between sureness to investors and flexibility to not create a rigid unintended consequence environment, that there will be further adjustments that are needed. But I think the most important thing at this point is that we loudly and clearly, as the people of this state, indicate our intentions to achieve the 33% and anticipate that this bill isn't perfect, that there will be hiccups, there will be corrections that will be needed, but we need to get this show on the road, get this program underway. So that being said, I personally enthusiastically encourage my colleagues to adopt this bill. Any questions or comments from members? Yes, Mr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to follow up, Senator, on the testimony on behalf of SMUD, and it is one of those loose ends, I dare say. But I wanted to confirm that the issue that they've raised, which would potentially, and I think inadvertently under the way the bill is drafted currently, make them a victim of having done more than was otherwise required, in reaching the 20% goal will be addressed in the subsequent discussions and legislation.
Couple of observations through the chair. I have actually Chairman Bradford in the Utilities Committee got off a good line the other day. I assured him that I was on this until the day I walked out the door, and he said he just wanted to make sure it wasn't the committee door that I was talking about, that it was until I completed my work in the legislature. I think the chairman's comments go to the fact, I don't think it's a question of perfect or not perfect. I think it's a question of the fact that you learn over time, and I think the old saying is only fools and the dead never change their mind, and we need to be responsive to changing circumstances. So I think all of us need to understand this isn't a we're done, now we move on. This is we're done for now, and then we go right back to work the next day. On this particular issue, I have committed to SMUD that I'd be happy to continue to talk to them and work with them. I've not made a commitment about any specific provision. They have been in conversation with the President Pro Tem of the Senate, however, and I know he's actively involved and engaged. So the conversation will continue on this and other issues. I do want to say on this issue of banking with respect to the 20% requirement as opposed to the 33% requirement, it's important to remember why we allow banking. We allow banking because we want to give people an incentive to do more, to get there sooner rather than later. And while we don't want to punish anyone who did more, we also don't want to provide a disincentive for them to do more in the next race, which is the race from 20% to 33%. Somebody just the other day said, you know, it's a little like saying, well, if I went to your restaurant and asked you for a plate of spaghetti with meatballs, and you gave me twice as many meatballs as I was entitled to, and then I came back a month later and said I'd like another plate of spaghetti with meatballs, and you said, here's the spaghetti with meatballs, and there were no meatballs, and I said, well, where are my meatballs? And you said, well, we banked that with the last serving that when you came last month. I would be disappointed because I came for spaghetti with meatballs, and all I got was spaghetti. And we're looking for 33%, and so when we talk about banking from the first race to 20%, with respect to 33%, we just have to be a little careful that we don't provide a disincentive to not only win the first race but to win the second race. And that being said, the underlying point here, I think, is where folks have made a good faith effort, done not just what they were asked to do, but more than what they've asked to do. We want to try and find a way to reward that kind of behavior, and that's the conversation we need to continue having.
Well, I'm not sure about the meatball metaphor, but
we've all gotten used to the not wanting to watch sausage being made, but I'm not sure about the watching spaghetti and meatballs being served.
But I understand the point you're making. I appreciate the commitment to continue to work on this. Fortunately for us in this region, SMUD keeps delivering the meatballs. So those of us who are ratepayers and local residents and community leaders intend to press them on that regardless of anything else that happens.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Monning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank the author for his marshaling this legislation once again, or I guess a continued work in progress. And what I've heard loudly and clearly is both a very broad spectrum of stakeholder support. You and I overlap in the districts we represent. There's a lot of support for this voiced from our district, but interestingly, a broad coalition of stakeholders from energy producers to energy purveyors or utilities to labor to investment capital. It just seems every sector is represented. And what I've heard from the opponents are concerns about some of the potential impacts in the course of implementation and an openness from the author. So I'm not really posing any specific question. I just want to thank you. I want to also acknowledge Senator Scheer for his leadership in identifying this as a worthy objective early on. And when we look at the current condition in the world, and I think your reference to the, or maybe the chair's reference to the current crisis affecting fossil fuel, I think the incentive is greater now than ever before to move forward rapidly with this endeavor. So thank you for your leadership, and at the appropriate time, I would like to be the one to move this bill.
Okay. Any other? Oh, it's moved and seconded. Any other comments? Mr. Knight.
I have heard this bill a few times. I'll give Senator Simitian some respect for his diligence. I'm sure that we'll have all our members come. We can leave the roll open at some point. I'm sure they're all out hearing bills that have to do with the budget, as we are. I don't have a question for you, Senator, but I am a little bit worried about many of the people that came up in opposition have many employees. They use a lot of energy. It seemed like that was the over-resounding kind of theme that all of the people that were opposing this bill had. And so that's why I'm very, very skeptical of the bill because of that, because of the opposition all had the same theme. They employ an awful lot of people. They use an awful lot of energy. They're very afraid.
Yes, Ms. Brownlee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add my remarks and to say thank you for your leadership, and I look forward to this bill coming to the floor and going to the governor's desk. And when I think about this special session relative to this bill and to our budget, and hopefully we can conclude the business on our budget, I think these are two very important pieces to California's economic recovery. And I think the budget, if we can pass it, says we're serious about balancing our budget and having a healthier budget in the future. And certainly this bill is the one that says, you know, California's economy has been built on innovation, and it's going to, I think both the budget hopefully and this bill will signal to the powers to be that we're serious about our business here in California, serious about balancing a budget, and serious about future technologies and innovation in California to continue our growth for the future.
Thank you, Ms. Brownlee. Any other comments or questions from committee members? Yes, Ms. Guo.
Thank you. I do support renewable energy, but I do have a question. You've gotten a lot of information that shares with me that ratepayers will be at the burden of supporting this, the common ratepayer who is really struggling in the family right now to even make ends meet. Is there something in the bill, and I did actually try to read the entire bill, but it's very technical, and being here just a few days, it was kind of difficult, and I apologize for that. But is there anything in the bill that guarantees some type of rate cap so that the ratepayer isn't subject to all those costs?
Thank you for the question, Assemblymember. Let me begin by pointing out that the measure is supported both by TURN, the Utility Rate Network, which is a statewide organization specifically focused on utility ratepayers, and second, that the bill is supported by the Division of Ratepayer Advocates. And actually, I think we have a copy of their letter here. If we could ask the Sergeant-at-Arms to hand the letter out. But let me just read briefly, with the Chair's permission, from the Division of Ratepayer Advocates letter, which is in support of the bill. The letter dated February the 11th says, the Division of Ratepayer Advocates, DRA, is the independent consumer advocacy division of the California Public Utilities Commission. DRA's statutory mandate is to obtain the lowest possible rate for utility service consistent with reliable and safe service levels. DRA supports your SB 2. DRA strongly supports the ratepayer protection provisions in this bill, which would limit program costs by establishing a limitation that prevents disproportionate rate impacts, adhering to the least cost and best fit approach, and by requiring sufficient transparency and reporting. This again from the Division of Ratepayer Advocates, which exists as per their letter, specifically for the purpose of obtaining the lowest possible rate for utility services consistent with reliable and safe service levels. The provisions of the bill that speak to this, which were added in response to some of the concerns that were raised in 2009 with the legislation that Governor Schwarzenegger vetoed, do require that there be what's called a rank order and a selection of RPS projects for least cost, best fit. That does require that the cost of the resources and the viability for projects be evaluated. It requires specifically the CPUC to adopt a limitation on the costs of procurement to prevent disproportionate rate impacts based on various factors. And it has a specific provision that says that if an investor-owned utility hits that cost limitation, then they can suspend procurement unless procurement can proceed without exceeding a de minimis increase in rates. There are reporting requirements on a regular basis to make sure that we keep our eye on this very issue, and there's a specific period in 2016 when essentially this issue gets a close second look to make sure that we're still doing the job that we set out to do on cost containment. All of that is with the standard review of contracts for just and reasonable, for reasonable and prudent costs and the costs of energy development. Those standards continue to be in place at the PUC. This replaces the old cost containment mechanism, the MPR, the market price referent, that many people thought, frankly, did not serve the state well. So we have a cost protection regimen in place that I think is very robust, very specific. The provisions are in the bill, and it is on that basis that both TURN and the Division of Ratepayer Advocacy supports the bill. The last cost I would make, last observation about cost I would make is just this. Simple market economics. Fossil fuels are finite, and we're using more of them every day. As demand keeps going up, there's fewer and fewer fossil fuels. Understandably, the cost of fossil fuels keeps going up. On the other hand, renewable energy prices have gone down, and one of the benefits of the delay, if there is one, Mr. Chairman and members, is we've had the opportunity to see those prices push down over the period of a very short period of the last few years. So we've got fossil fuel prices going up, we've got renewable prices going down, and we've got cost protection measures in the bill that I think are very robust. That's why we've got the support from DRA and from TURN as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? I just want to say, even though this bill has a couple more steps to go, let me reiterate, I think this is a historic vote. I think it's one we'll look back on with a great deal of pride that we kept California moving forward in its leadership in the world in terms of moving away from non-renewable fossil fuels and towards a true renewable future. So that being said, please call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, could I do a brief close?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
of
all
course.
right.
Historic.
Please
close.
I don't want to step on my own vote, but I do want to try and respond further to a question that Assemblymember Grove raised, and just mention we did have the benefit of some bipartisan support on the Senate side. Senators Runner, Strickland, and Blakeslee voted for the bill. It was a 26-11 vote. There were a couple of reasons, I think, for that. I won't try and speak for those three members. That would be presumptuous. But one of the questions that was asked on the floor is, what happens if the bill doesn't pass? And the answer is, then we continue to have the CPUC pursuing its 20% obligation under statute, while we have the California Air Resources Board pursuing the executive order that calls for 33% based on greenhouse gases. So we have a duplicative bureaucracy working on RPS with two different targets, the ARB pursuing a 33% target based on greenhouse gases and without the cost protection measures that are contained in this bill. So I have made the case, and I don't mean it facetiously, whether you're for 33% or against 33%, you should probably be for the bill. I think the bill stands on its merits with respect to cleaner air, climate change, but even if you didn't care about those, it also has an important role to play in terms of providing the diversity in our energy portfolio that we need to protect ourselves against the kind of market manipulation we've seen in the past. The gentleman from the League of Food Processors said that he thought natural gas was now abundant in the state. Maybe, but just 5 years ago there were half a dozen multi-billion-dollar proposals for liquefied natural gas terminals off the coast of California because people said we didn't have enough natural gas. And 5 years before that, we were stuck here in the energy crisis of 2001 because we lacked the kind of diverse portfolio we should have had to protect ourselves against market manipulation. When all of our energy eggs are in one basket, that is bad energy policy and it is bad for the ratepayer. Then the comment's already been made about the value of this from a foreign policy standpoint. And of course, we're the state legislature, fair enough, and I'm sure we have a range of views about foreign policy. But whatever our views are, I think we can all agree that America's interests are best served when America's foreign policy is based on our interests and our values, not on our energy needs. And that's why it makes sense on a foreign policy basis to go forward as well. But finally, on the jobs front,
we're going to lose Ms. Skinner, so let me
just want to thank you.
Can we
I just
call
want
Ms.
to say
Skinner's
and
name
respectfully ask for an aye vote. That was what I wanted to say, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you.
Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Knight. Knight, no. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. Dickinson. Dickinson, aye. Grove. Grove, no. Halderman? Halderman, no. Huffman? Monning?
Aye.
Monning, aye. Skinner? Skinner, aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
on to
Chairman.
the-
Thank you, Mary.
Onwards and upwards. Well, let's wait a few minutes.
For a few minutes.
Yeah.
I'll go check.
Yeah. We're going to stay in session and hold the roll in case Mr. Huffman's available to come and add on.
Call Huffman, find out.
I didn't know what you were talking about.